Welcome to 49ers After Dark. We're your hosts, Grant Cohn, Jessie Naylor, and we're very happy to be here. We got a lot to talk about. We were sitting on this idea. We think it's Jessie's idea. I think it's just genius, and it's so smart that I didn't want to say anything about it last week because we had the idea last week, and then the state of the franchise kind of pushed all that back. So I was like, we got something special next week, but I don't want to say it because all those podcasters, they're out here starving for content, and I don't want to give it to them. This is for us. So during the pandemic, they had these Verzuz battles, where washed up rappers, washed up R&B singers would run through their old catalog, and people would decide who was better based on songs we've all heard a million times before. I didn't really dig it because it kind of reduced music to kind of like sports, and music and sports are different, but it was very popular. And I think it's a very good format for actual athletes because you can compare those on an objective basis.
Absolutely.
That's my preamble. This is Jesse's idea, and I like it a lot. So let's start with Jimmy Garoppolo and Alex Smith.
Okay.
Who's better?
All right.
On
well,
the 49ers.
Yeah, for the 49ers. So to make a case for both real quick, just to lay it out, obviously Jimmy's had the 1 year that he played in 2019, 13-3 season, and he threw for way more yards than what Alex Smith ever threw as a 49er by a pretty wide margin, like 700 yards. He threw for more touchdowns than Alex Smith ever threw for in a season by as a 49er quarterback. But the one thing that I keep thinking of is if 2011 Alex Smith, which was his best year in San Francisco, were to play for the 2019 49ers, would that Super Bowl run outcome have been different? And I believe that it would have been.
I do too.
And here's the biggest reason is because he took care of the ball. And that's exactly what that team needed. They needed a guy to take care of the ball, and Jimmy is not that. Okay. So with that being said, if I compare his 2011 season versus Jimmy's 2019, although he had less touchdowns and less yards, he also threw 8 less interceptions and had 3 less fumbles. Yep. So to me, I'm giving Alex Smith the edge for sure.
Now, let me say it's close because neither guy really makes other players better. They're kind of dependent on the talent around them.
Yeah.
And while Alex Smith does have certain strengths, particularly protecting the football, he wasn't that good on third down on the Niners. And Jimmy Garoppolo, give him credit, he was. In 2019, he was. But I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo never improved on the 49ers. Some of his best tape was in 2017. I never felt he improved in any part of his game, mentally, physically, nothing. Whereas Alex Smith improved the entire time, every time. So I would have to give the edge to Alex Smith too, although it is close. But I agree. I think he would have won the Super Bowl. A quarterback like Alex Smith would have won with that 2019 team.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was going through, of course, I wanted to compare somebody to Jimmy because that's the fun thing to do right now. But it didn't make sense to compare him to a Kaepernick or
Kaepernick would win.
Yes, absolutely. A Garcia
would win
or any of those guys. Yeah. So in fact, somebody actually told me that I was crazy for thinking that Garcia was a good quarterback. I thought he was pretty damn good. Maybe I'm misremembering.
He went to 3 Pro Bowls with the 49ers and I believe was an MVP candidate. I don't think a Niners quarterback has gone to the Pro Bowl since Jeff Garcia.
If I remember correctly, he had the best passer rating of any 49ers QB as well.
Back then, the best quarterbacks in the league were Brett Favre. I'm talking like 2000, 2001. Brett Favre.
Yep.
Kurt Warner.
Yep.
Jeff Garcia.
Yep.
Donovan McNabb.
Yep.
Steve McNair.
Yep.
Who am I missing? He was in like the top 5, 6, 7 guys.
Yeah. For sure he was.
Yes.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know if if you're a little too young for Jeff Garcia, go back and watch him. He was very, very good.
He was very good.
Comeback win in that playoff game
against the Giants.
Epic. Never had good defenses.
No.
Never played with good defenses or good offensive lines. He was running for his life, and he was good at it, man. He made a lot of off-schedule plays. He was a chaos quarterback.
I also think that a lot of people remember it that he wasn't that good. Oh, Bulger was another one. Yeah, he was pretty decent back then for a couple seasons.
Garcia better. They're going to say
He
Peyton
was.
Manning. Yeah, I'm going to say Peyton Manning too. How could I forget Peyton Manning? Yes, Garcia was not as good as Peyton Manning, but
Yeah, for
he
sure.
was top 8 in the league for sure. And
Yeah.
then people were like, oh, he was just a product of Terrell Owens. Not true. He went to
Nope.
Tampa and was a Pro Bowler once again. And
Yes,
this was
he
all
was.
like post 30 because he had to spend
Yep.
his 20s in Canada.
Yep,
Siberia.
absolutely. Yep,
Yeah.
that's a good point because people remember T.O. leaving and then roasting him, and so they're like, "Oh, maybe he wasn't that good." And then the other problem is people like to look at stats from back then and compare them to today's game. It's a completely different game. Completely different. 20 years is a long time.
Didn't Garcia end up winning a playoff game with the Eagles like when he was like 47 or something?
Yeah,
he did, right? He
did.
He came into so anyway. Guy was a beast. Respect. I don't know if there's any like good Garcia highlights on YouTube, but if there are, holla at me because I'm trying to watch that.
Plus, he always looked like the dude that played RoboCop to me. Also, I don't know why, but just go look at a picture of RoboCop and look at Jeff Garcia. Very similar.
All right, I'll check that out. Guy's in great shape. Guy didn't mess around.
No, he really didn't.
One more thing about Jeff Garcia. He's one of these former Niners who has this attitude like he should still be on the team. T.O., Jerry Rice, Jeff Garcia. These guys, I feel like they're in their 50s working out being like, I'm still better. I don't care.
For sure.
And you got to love that because that's what made them so great. All right, moving on. Raheem Mostert versus Matt Breida. These are two teammates.
Yes.
Share the backfield, share the room.
Yes. And I think people, at least I did, and this is why I wanted to compare these two, because when I first thought of it, I'm like, Raheem Mostert, clear edge, right? And then when you look at it, Breida was pretty dang good for a couple years himself. In fact, he eclipsed 1,000 total yards, and Mostert hasn't done that in a season. So if we remember too, Breida was the up-and-coming, nobody knew about speedy back, just like Mostert was, right?
Yes.
And Breida, I believe, had like an 800-plus yard rushing season, then like 200-something receiving, which put him over 1,000. Mostert's around that like 970 range. They both average roughly the same amount of yards per carry. Mostert does have the edge when it comes to touchdowns. The reason I'm going to give the edge to Mostert overall, though, is the playoffs. Because that playoff run that he made was unbelievable. I mean, that's top notch. And when you can do that on that stage, especially your first time through, you've got to get the nod here.
They are very similar. And I really do like Matt Breida. He went to Miami and they didn't know how to use him. And he still averaged 4.3 yards per carry. I think if you brought him back here, he'd be averaging 5 yards a carry. He's a good player.
Oh, he is a very good player.
But I feel like Mostert is a little bit better at making something out of nothing. I think he has his vision's a little bit better. He's a little quicker to spot the cutback.
Yeah.
I think he's just a little bit better of a runner. Plus, he plays special teams. Plus, absolutely. I think he gives you a little bit more as a receiver too. So maybe this one isn't. I would take Mostert, and I think also, even though Mostert's older than him, I feel like Mostert has more of a future and still has more potential than Breida. I don't know. Maybe because Breida's small.
Well, he also that's it. Is Mostert bulked up, and obviously didn't help him stay healthy. But you saw the way that he started hitting defenders last year. It was super aggressive, and if he really can add that to his game and be a bit of a bulldozer, also with that speed, it's pretty tough to handle a guy like that.
Yeah, there's something so smooth about Mostert's running style. Raymond Martinez Jr. over here says Mostert surfs when he runs with incredible balance of vision. Yeah, he almost looks like he's surfing. It's really, I like it. One of the things I missed most last season was watching him play. I really like watching him run, watching him play. I'm a Raheem Mostert fan. What can I say?
Absolutely.
I dig the guy's music.
Absolutely.
All right, Jason Verrett versus Carlos Rogers.
Yeah, so Verrett's really good, but I think Carlos Rogers is better because, first of all, he did it for a little bit longer, right?
That's true.
And let's look at his 2011 season versus what Mostert did. I mean, what Verrett did last year. So Verrett had 2 interceptions last year, 7 pass deflections. I think he had a PFF grade of like 91 or whatever it ended up being. I don't put a lot of stock in PFF, but it's something to talk about. Carlos Rogers in 2011 had 6 picks and 18 pass deflections. He was going bananas that year.
Wow.
So when I look at those two, to me, he definitely has the edge, and he did it for longer, So
that's true.
I have to give it to him for that. I mean, he was a part of a 3-year run where they were going to the NFC Championship minimum every single year, and he was a big part of that.
That is true. You made a great case for Rodgers. Let me just point out, though, that he was playing behind the best front seven in the NFL with a monster pass rush, as opposed to Verrett, who was playing without Buckner and Bosa last year in Ford. So it's a little bit different.
That's true.
And the other difference is Rodgers, while he would start out outside in nickel packages, he was the slot corner.
Yeah.
So they're a little different. Like if you wanted to stop Victor Cruz, although Victor Cruz kind of worked him in the playoffs, but if you wanted to stop someone like Randall Cobb or Victor Cruz, I would say Carlos Rogers all day because he's a little bit bigger. I think his hips are a little bit more fluid. But if you need to stop DeAndre Hopkins outside or Anquan Boldin, anyone outside, I would go with Verrett. I just think he's a more physical corner. Rogers was a little soft. Yeah. Rogers was a little soft. And
that's true.
Even though Verrett's smaller, he's just a nuisance. And the one thing I'll never forget with Rogers, although he was great in 2011, he was not great in the Super Bowl. He kind of got worked at the catch point by Boldin. Who doesn't get worked at the catch point by Boldin? And I'm not, Verrett might have too. Verrett's 5'10" and Boldin's 225. So, it's a tough one, man. I think I'm going to go with Verrett, though. Even though you made a good – he's only done, he played 14 games with the Niners. I'm going to go with the Verrett in the sense that I think him at his peak might be a little bit better than Carlos Rogers at his peak. But what Rogers had was versatility and consistency and longevity. So I'm just going to say Verrett to say something different. But you made a good
that's fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah. All right. Next one in our versus battle. Jaquiski Tartt, Dante Whitner.
All right. So both very good players, both physically imposing to a certain extent. Whitner definitely was the more physically imposing player. But I also think that Whitner was probably the better coverage player. So when you look at it, first of all, he did make a Pro Bowl as a 49er. And he had multiple seasons with double-digit pass deflections, which is something that Tartt has never done.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but to think of that playoff game against the Saints and Pierre Thomas and that hit. His nickname is Hittner for a reason.
Yes. But
So I think that Whitner is the better player. And that package of him and Goldson, oh my gosh, those guys together were so scary for opposing defenses.
Okay, I'm going to try to argue with you here. Let me see if I can do it.
Let's do it.
I love Whitner. Whitner was great.
Mm-hmm.
But let's keep in mind he was used differently. Big Fangio's a genius. Whitner was a first-round pick. Whitner's a hell of an athlete, all right?
Yeah.
5'10", I think he ran a 4.3. But he's 5'10", and in Buffalo, they felt he was a bust because they used him differently. They had him in man-to-man coverage on guys like Rob Gronkowski in that division. And you know what? You just can't cover Rob Gronkowski.
No, that's not fair.
Fangio did was play him in split safety looks all day and keep him out of man-to-man coverage because he didn't need to put him in man-to-man coverage. He had Patrick Willis and Bowman. We don't need you to do that. Sure. Just play half the field and destroy people. Play quarters and break early on passes. You read the play. And I think that was the perfect way to use him. And he was great in that role. Thing about Tartt is he can do that and more. The idea of Tartt is so tantalizing because he can do everything, man. He could play linebacker. He could play single high. He could play strong safety. He could play the box. He can play split safety. He can play man-to-man coverage. Tartt can do it all. It's just that Tartt is going to miss half the season.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I got to give it to Whitner too. But if you gave Vic Fangio Jaquiski Tartt, he never coached Tartt. That was after. If you gave him Tartt and Tartt could stay healthy, he still has upside and potential.
He does. I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating because he is a very good player.
But I want to say Tartt. Tartt on his side.
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? Because you want to compare potential versus what actually got produced, right? And you see it with Tartt. You definitely see it with Tartt, but he's never been able to put it together for whatever reason, whether it's scheme or injury or what have you. He just hasn't put together seasons the way that Whitner did, you know?
But let me say something real quick. Jimmy Ward was the same way and recently has had some health success late in his career.
That's true.
Maybe Jaquaski. I don't know why I like Jaquaski Tartt.
I do too.
I like him. Too. So hopefully he can do that because he's been missing half a season pretty consistently. But the thing that's cool about him is that he's totally bet on himself this year. He's taken like a vet minimum deal. He's one of the cheapest players on the team. I think he's making $800K this year. And he's like, I don't care. I can go anywhere else. I want to come back here, play the same defense, and prove myself. I think it's cool. I hope he proves himself.
So I'm noticing that we're comparing, and I didn't even realize this until just now, but it's a lot of this Super Bowl team or, roughly this Super Bowl team versus the last Super Bowl team. And so I think it'd be fun at the end to just say which team we think would win if they went up against each other.
Oh, yeah, I got that right now. I can do that right now. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Cam says, hey, Jesse, good seeing ya.
Hey, good seeing you too, Cam. I appreciate it.
That was awfully nice.
That was very nice. That was very nice.
Okay, the next versus battle. Fred Warner versus Navarro Bowman.
Man, this is so tough, Grant. This is the toughest one out of all of them. You go first on this one.
I don't think it's that tough for me.
Okay.
Maybe it's just me, but I've always felt that Navarro Bowman is just a little bit overrated by the Florida fan. I know he was a monster in 2013 and should have won Defensive Player of the Year in 2013. I think he should have. Not Kuechly. But come on, man. The dude had 3 great years. I know we're going to say, so was Fred Warner. Okay. Hey,
Fred's
Fred
only
Warner
been in the year for 3, just to be fair.
Fred could mangle his knee next year and go down the same path as Bowman. So that's fair. But I'm going to say something else. I guess this is more to the point. Bowman played next to Patrick Willis, all right? And Fred Warner doesn't. If Fred Warner played next to Patrick Willis, I think Fred Warner would look even better because Patrick Willis was one of those rare Hall of Fame players that made everyone look better around him. And I think Bowman was one of those guys. Like, I'm sorry. So what specifically was Warner better at than Bowman? He's faster than Bowman, taller than Bowman. It's probably a little bit smarter than Bowman because he's the smartest.
More instinctual.
Yeah, I mean, so he doesn't hit as hard as Bowman, but I'd rather him have him in coverage, although Bowman was very good. Bowman was very good for those 3 years. I got to say, man, you could have him spy quarterbacks. You could have him cover running backs. He had the game. It
was actually 4 years, Grant. He was a 4-time All-Pro.
Yeah, but that 4th All-Pro, in my opinion, that was the year before he tore his Achilles. He got a bunch of tackles, but it was on like the worst defense ever. I don't know. I felt like his coverage slipped, but he was still racking up tackles. But he was never the same. He was never the same.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't.
He tore like 18 ligaments in one knee, and there's not even 18 ligaments in one knee. So it's not fair what happened, and he gave it up for the team. It was heroic. But I'm taking Fred Warner.
Okay. Well, then, since it's so tough for me, I'm going to take the other side. It is a versus battle.
Yes.
All right.
Someone's got to do his side. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So from 11 to 13, Bowman had 436 tackles to Warner's 367 through his 3 years. Okay. He had 23 pass deflections to 21, and he had 28 tackles for a loss to only 15 for Warner. He was a 3-time All-Pro during that span, and Warner's been a 1-time first-team All-Pro during that span. I'm going to give it to Bowman. Plus that pick at the stick,
that was
unforgettable.
Sick. He broke up the pass on 4th down with the game on the line in Atlanta. That was intended for Roddy White. I mean, the offensive coordinator for Atlanta, Dirk Cutter, worked specifically to get Roddy White in the slot, man-to-man against the linebacker. Got the matchup he wanted. Bowman was like, "Oh, you got your Pro Bowl linebacker. I mean, bat Super Bowl in face. That was tight. I remember that." Yeah. Also, there were some plays with him in 2011, like chasing down Michael Vick in the backfield. Pretty good. I mean, he was really good. Someone was mad at me that I said Bowman's 4th Pro Bowl was, dude, it was totally reputation. He racked up a bunch of tackles, but his coverage that year was terrible. I'm sorry. It was just, his coverage before the ACL tear was impeccable, though. Impeccable.
It was. You're right. It was a bunch of tackles that year because if you go look at the stats that year, that was his highest tackle season. Right. But if you look at all the other numbers, the tackle for losses, the pass to flat, all that was way down. Yeah. So he really got there by just.
And it was a good story. He'd come back. Sure. Everyone liked him, and he was like, "Let's give him that." But I'm sorry, before that injury, dude was really, really good. And I think a lot of people thought he was better than Willis, even though he wasn't. The difference was that Willis played more on the strong side. Like the Niners played a particular front where basically every offensive lineman was covered except for the strong side guard, and that's where Willis was. So he was the one more taking on that guy. He was the one covering tight ends man-to-man down the field. When Jimmy Graham came to town, it was him on Jimmy Graham, not Bowman. I don't think Bowman could handle that.
Yeah.
I don't think
you're probably right.
Warner could.
You're probably right.
Warner could.
You think so? Do you think that's actually a good question. Do you think if Fred Warner was in that defense instead of Willis that he would have actually been able to handle that? I don't know if he would have been able to get clean the way that you think he would.
I would like to have Willis in coverage on the tight end and have Warner in coverage on the tight end because he's 6'3", and I just like Willis going sideline to sideline.
Yeah.
Because if you saw when Willis was young, he was more of like the weak side inside linebacker, and Takeo Spikes was the guy taking on blocks, and Willis had like 180 tackles a year. Yeah. And then later on, he moved over there and made life easy for Bowman, who ended up usually leading the team in tackles because he was in that spot.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Where you're playing directly behind. That's what I'm saying is like, before we move on, Bowman played directly. He played next to Willis. He played directly behind Justin Smith.
Yes, he did.
So you couldn't block him.
You're right.
You understand? You couldn't block him. But if you wanted to block Willis, he wasn't playing behind anyone.
You're right.
Right? Like you got a 5 technique outside the tackle, you got a 1 technique, and there's no guard can just get him.
You're right. You're absolutely right. No, you definitely you're making a very good point. It's a very good point. And it's a tough one. It really is a tough one. Both great players.
I hate to come on here and be like, Bowman's overrated. It was like he was great. He was great. You're
just saying pump the brakes. It's
a versus battle.
Right. And this has always been my argument. Not a 49er, but John Elway, right? I've always said that John Elway is the most overrated quarterback of all time. But then I also put him in my top 7, and people are like, well, how is that possible? Well, because people thought he was the best quarterback of all time, and he's not even close to that. But he is a top 10 quarterback of all time with a 57% or it's like 56.9% completion percentage. I'm sorry. That efficiency, you cannot be the top overall quarterback. And a lot of people for years thought he was better than Montana. So I'm like, listen, this guy's the most overrated quarterback of all time. Still great, but the most overrated. And that's kind of what you're saying with Bowman. Still great, but compared to Willis and Warner, maybe a little overrated.
True.
That's fair.
But if Mike Shanahan could win 2 Super Bowls with John Elway, I'd be curious to see what Bill Walsh could have done with him in the 80s. I'm just thinking. So I feel like the thing with John Elway in the NFL community was kind of like, well, Dan Reeves doesn't really know what he's doing with him, but if I had that dude, let me just tell you. And the way people talk about him is like he has the most arm talent they'd ever seen until Josh Allen.
Right.
So anyway. Let's keep it pushing. All right. Nick Bosa versus Aldon Smith.
Oh, this is a good one. I think you missed a super chat, though.
Oh, I missed a super chat. This is not officially started. Hold on. Cam Cooper? Oh, my bad.
Yes.
Cam Cooper says, Grant and Jesse, who is the closest comparison to Trey Lance other than Josh Allen? Carson Wentz. They went to the same school. Now, he's better than Carson Wentz. I'm just saying, like, it's so easy to look at Carson Wentz and be like, okay, well, Trey Lance, better here, same school, a lot like this. That's why Josh Allen's a better comparison because he should be better than Wentz. But those two guys, and then I think we'll just throw in a little Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray for the off-schedule stuff, even though he's so much bigger than them.
That's just it. And I really wish I could give you just a really solid answer here, Cam, but I can't because Josh Allen and Herbert were guys that I liked so much because I just couldn't get a good comp for them. I didn't have a good feel of who they were most like, and that's why I
still don't have a comp for Herbert. I don't even know.
No, exactly. And Trey Lance is the same way because if you look at Trey Lance, what makes him so dang good is that he has all the physical attributes of some of the best guys in the league.
Yes.
However, he plays it a lot more safe than those guys.
It's true.
Right? So it's really hard to comp a guy like that. It really is hard to comp a guy like that.
We're getting some McNabb comparisons, some McNair
Yeah,
comparisons. I've heard Dak comparisons.
Yeah, you know what? And both great
A lot of good
comparisons,
comparisons.
guys. Yeah, both great comparisons, and that's two guys that I've thought of as well. But there's just something a little extra with Lance, man, that those guys just didn't have. So for me, I would say I just can't give you a good comp. I really can't.
All right. Okay. The next versus battle. Nicholas Bosa versus Aldonius Smith.
Okay. I would love to say Bosa here because he's the current hot commodity, but I've been watching football for a long time, and I don't know if I've seen a better pure pass rusher other than, let's say, Reggie White than Aldon Smith. For those couple years before he was in trouble, you go look at the numbers, he was better than Von Miller, right? And look at what we think of Von Miller. You're talking about a guy that in his second season put up 19 and a half sacks. His first season, he had 13 sacks, 13 tackles for a loss, 27 QB hits to Bosa's 9 sacks, 16 tackles for a loss, and 25 QB hits. All the great things that we think about Bosa, Aldon Smith was a level above that. And I really don't know if I've seen a better pass rush talent, like I said, other than Reggie White, than Aldon Smith to me. I mean, he was so amazing.
All right. Let me argue against Aldon Smith for the sake of it, because this is a versus battle.
Yeah.
The thing about Aldon Smith was the beginning of his career was, it was historic. It was like only him and Lawrence Taylor that ever done anything like that. But it didn't last long, man. It really didn't last long.
No, it definitely didn't.
Like the first year was excellent. The second year was crazy. What do you have, 19 sacks? But then
19 and a half.
The way I remember it was, now Justice Smith did help him a lot.
Sure.
A lot. And there was a lot of ways that they would do the stunts and stuff. But Aldon Smith was great on his own. And the big difference between him and Bosa is those arms, man. Aldon Smith had these like 36-inch arms, and you couldn't touch him, and he would just dispose of the offensive tackle and finish, like without having to dive, as opposed to Bosa, who wins and then has to dive at the ankles, and sometimes he misses. Sometimes he doesn't finish the play, but he gets the pressure. So in that sense, Aldon Smith was better. But the way I remember it was, for a lot of reasons, his career went down the tubes fast. And a lot of people say, well, he had, problems and issues and stuff. But even in that 2012 season, Justice Smith got hurt. He blew out his tricep and really wasn't effective down the stretch. And I felt that Aldon Smith wasn't effective down the stretch either, to the point we keep gonna keep comparing Super Bowl performances here.
For sure.
Aldon Smith was a ghost in that Super Bowl, if I could just say that. That defense stunk. He did nothing. And when you go back and watch him, I didn't even think he played that hard. I think in the biggest game of his life, there were plays where coaches would say that he was loafing on the field, as opposed to Nick Bosa, who played his ass off in the Super Bowl, although he did give up that touchdown run at the end. That was him. The run at the end.
He did.
But no, he played his ass off in that game. So, and he's, I don't know if he's going to have injuries or not, but I'm betting that he has a better career in the future, which is not the question we're at hand. But I bet you he's going to have a better future than Aldon. So
for sure,
I was going to go with Aldon too,
but
I wanted to give Nick Bosa his argument, and as I did it, I think I convinced myself.
Well, here's what I'll say about Bosa real quick, though.
Yeah.
The same thing that you just said about Aldon Smith with Justin Smith out, you can really say that when Ford was out, Bosa was held very in check, and he still
That's a good point, Jesse.
He still had Buckner
Good point.
right there next to him, right? So
I wanted to make
he was
that
dealing
point
with
too.
slouches. Yeah,
it's true. He had DeForest Buckner, who honestly better pass rusher than Justin Smith.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes. 100%. Yes.
Not a better run defender. Justin Smith was
Justin Smith could take on double teams like nobody's business.
But Justin Smith was like a gradual pass rusher. Like if you held the ball too long, he was going to get there. But
for sure.
DeForest Buckner with that 6'8" swim move would have instant wins.
Yeah.
Once a game.
But Smith would be able to hold the guy next to him so that they could get those stunts in, like you talked about. Oh my gosh!
Justin Smith is the only defensive tackle that I know who would routinely get defensive holding penalties. Routinely,
for sure.
And it was only once that defense started, once they started winning games, that they'd stop calling that on him, because all of a sudden it was like, well, actually, he's an All-Pro. Before it was like, that's illegal. I don't think he can do that. That was too good. Cam Cooper says, since you went with a guy from the Eagles, I want to keep the topic of versus going. Jalen Hurts versus Trey Lance. Oh,
Trey Lance, easy. Yes, Trey Lance.
The question is Jalen Hurts versus Nick Mullins.
Listen, you've gone too far.
I like Jalen Hurts. He can do stuff off schedule, but dude, the guy will one hop a 6-yard out.
Yeah,
he is so scattershot with his throws. I don't know if he's accurate enough, but I like the way he runs around. So I don't know.
But I'll say this too. I also had Trey Lance over Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. So that's how high I am on Trey Lance. So,
hey, Twisted Eva.
He's the best, man. I love that guy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very generous of you. I appreciate it. Big money, as Keneal Mason said. That's true. Ominous. The people just dropping money over here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, there's actually
a good point. Yeah, he had a comment, Grant. Let's give him some
much
love.
Better against the run.
Yeah,
it's true. You know, Smith's first year, he didn't really. He was a nickel player. Paris Harrelson played it. Yeah, second year, he was.
I don't think he started any games his rookie year. Just to be fair, he started all 16 his second year. I do know that.
But that's because, again, Alden Smith was a D-end in college, and they moved him to outside linebacker, and he wasn't really comfortable in space like that. So, I don't know. But, yeah, Bosa's pretty good against the run.
Yeah, he's definitely he's very good against the run. He's very good against the run. Yeah. Although, I will say that even Alden had 66 tackles the season that he did start all 16 games. So, that's, still 22 or so more than what Bosa had his rookie year. So
that's true. All right. Next versus Eric Armstead versus Roy Barker. Remind everyone who Roy Barker was, because at first I was like, wait a second.
So Roy Barker played for, I believe it was the Vikings early on, and then he ended up coming to San Francisco, but he was a part of that mid to late 90s defensive line. Dolman was on one side, Junior Bryant Young, and then Roy Barker.
Yes.
And this one was tough. I definitely wanted to go newer, like a newer team or a newer player, but I just couldn't really find a good comparison for Armstead. And Roy Barker was kind of that guy. I mean, big, imposing guy, good player. People are like, who? What? Who?
He was that guy.
Yeah, so I know before some people's time, I apologize, but take a look at him. Yeah. Very good player.
Educate yourself.
So yeah, I'm going to take Roy Barker. I mean, you're talking about a guy who had multiple 12-plus sack seasons. He had a 12.5 sack season and a 12 sack season. Okay, and who?
Okay, again, hold on. Okay, Roy Barker. All right. He played for the 49ers from 96 to 98, okay? He started 44 games for the Niners. Mm-hmm. He had 30 sacks in 44 games. He also had 10 forced fumbles. So, I mean, he was decent.
I would say so. Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah. I mean, real quick, Eric Armstead over here, 22 and a half sacks in 59 games.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 forced fumbles. So
can we get Pinor's comment up on the screen? That's a good one.
Hold on, let me find him.
It's like 3 or 4 back.
Not my lane, so you guys
go down a little bit further down.
Oh, Roy Barker, because he hasn't pissed me off like Armstead has.
If nothing else, there you go.
Yeah. I'm supposed to be here making a case for Eric Armstead, but he wasn't nice to me on Twitter, so I'm not going to make a case for Eric Armstead. I'm on Roy Barker. I'm Team Roy. And Team Eric, Roy. If you want someone to represent you in this versus battle in the future, why don't you come on my YouTube channel and let me interview you? What do you say?
There you go.
And the super chats, I'll donate them to charity. Otherwise,
Hey,
yeah.
I
How about
like
that?
that. I like that. P Price on Twitter says, "Too bad he didn't we didn't have Charles Haley comparison." Good luck. I mean, who are we going to compare? I mean, maybe if you wanted to do Alden Smith versus Haley, and I tried to find a Haley comparison, but Bosa versus Haley's just not fair. I mean, that's not. We're way too early for that. Haley
He's a
is,
champion.
yeah, he was like the main champion. I mean, outside of Tom Brady, he has the most rings.
That's true.
And he was the key cog for the 49ers and those Dallas Super Bowls.
That is true.
A lot of people want to put it on Dion, but I really believe that it was Haley.
Yeah, in 94. Runa Pereira says Kirk Cousins versus the rest of the quarterbacks. Easy.
Easy. Kirk Cousins. Wow, way to waste your money.
She already knew. Cam Cooper says this is one for the chat. Jordan or LeBron? All right, it's for the chat.
Yeah, listen. I actually did a video of Jordan LeBron on my channel probably about 2 weeks ago. Go check that out, and you can get my opinion on that.
After the football ones, I need Steph versus Dame. It's Steph. I'm sorry. They play the same style of basketball, except Steph is better at shooting. And I think the key thing is, and we don't need to talk about this at all. I'm not even going to do this. I'm just going to slander Dame Lillard and then just get under your skin and be like, and moving on. No, I'm not even going to get it. I'm not going to say it. They're both great in their own special ways. I love them.
Right. Their own special way. I felt like you just patted Dame on the head like, oh, you're good too.
No, Dame's great. The thing with Dame is that I really consider him a small two. And I know you could say Steph's a small two too. Mm-hmm. I think Steph is he's more willing to pass than Dame. Yes. I think when Dame passed, it's like his last resort. He's exhausted himself as an option first. And he's very good. But Steph, I mean, I know he doesn't have
Curry's better off the ball. That's the biggest.
Better off the ball. But I don't know, man. I just think Dame is a small two.
Listen, if I want a guy to take a game winner, it's definitely Dame. That's for sure.
Fine.
Because
he can have that.
Curry is no. And somebody says Steph versus Kyrie. Listen, Dame's better than Kyrie, so we're having the right talk here.
Kyrie is a head case, man. That guy's a loser, in my opinion. He's loser. Okay, Kyle Juszczyk versus Fred Beasley. Who you got?
All right, so Fred Beasley, another one of those guys, late 90s, early 2000s guy, all right?
Yes.
But a very good – the 49ers have had a lot of good fullbacks. Can we just say that? Like tight ends and fullbacks, very blessed at those positions.
No
very
question.
Blessed.
Fred Beasley's definitely the forgotten man. Everyone talks about Tom Rathman, William Floyd.
Yes.
People forget about Fred Beasley.
Almost everybody forgets about Fred Beasley. Okay, so Juice is the better weapon. Okay,
yes.
I will say that. But Fred Beasley also put together some rushing yards and receiving yards himself. Here's the difference. I went back and I had to look at teams because as a fullback, your main priority is to block for the tailback, right? He had 4 teams that broke 2,000 yards rushing, and that's with, Barlow. I think they had a year where they broke 2,000 when Hurst was out with an injury. That's how good of a lead blocker he was, all right? Mm-hmm. And Juszczyk throughout his career, by the way, at this point, I believe they both played, it was like 7 or 8 seasons, so we're talking even. Beasley also, Juice has only done that 2 times. So only twice in his career has he been a lead blocker for a team that went over 2,000 total rushing yards. And so with Beasley doing it 4 times, he's a better pure fullback. Juice is the better Swiss Army knife. I'm going to go slightly Juice. Just because I know what he can do if Kyle actually gets him the ball.
Beasley was really interesting. If I remember it when I was a kid, what happened was they had Garrison Hurst, who was great, and then he missed 2 years. And they had to scramble to put together a rushing attack, and they brought in Charlie Garner, and they had Fred Beasley, who did nothing in 97.
Yeah.
But together in 99,
yes.
Beasley and Garner were amazing. They were so good. Garner was amazing. Yeah. But Beasley had like 4.8 yards per carry too and was the lead blocker. He was really good. He was a better runner than Kyle Juszczyk was. He could really run the ball. I remember that. And then in 2003, when I guess the first year of Erickson, when that team was starting to go to hell, he went to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
So he was a hell of a player. you could argue that he was actually a better player than Kyle Juszczyk because Juszczyk can't. He's so not a natural rusher. He played tight end in college. He runs way high, and he's you give him the ball too many times, he'll fumble if he's running. Hell of a receiver though, hell of a blocker. They're very close, and Juszczyk goes to the Pro Bowl every year. It's because there's no more fullbacks. Back then, there were some really good fullbacks in the NFL. There was Mike Allstott every year. There was Lorenzo Neal. This guy was a Pro Bowler one time.
He was. You're in good hands with Allstott. I remember that.
That's true. Yes.
God, there was something I was going to say, and I forget what the heck it was.
Lowell versus Papa. That's not a fair versus battle. They didn't do the same thing. One guy's a play-by-play announcer. One guy writes.
Right. Yeah. So, very, very different. There's been a lot of them actually thrown in here. We have Mike Rumford, Whiskey Tartt. There was Sherman versus Primetime. That's easy. Who was the best player on the 94 team? And then a Kendrick Bourne versus J.J. Stokes.
Bourne. I never thought J.J. Stokes was that good. He played next to Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, Brent Jones, freaking everyone. And he was like at a certain point, Ty Streets was better than him, I thought.
Oh, yeah, Ty Streets.
Ty Streets was an upgrade.
Ty Streets is the one that caught the touchdown in that comeback against the Giants from Garcia. That was the game-winning touchdown. Oh, the other one was Debo versus Crabtree. That's interesting. That's not prepared for that one, but
it was Crabtree. Crabtree in 2000. Crabtree had the long arms, and he could when he was in 2012. Crabtree was averaging not quite the 8 yards after the catch that Debo would get, but at least 6. At least 6.
Yeah.
Crabtree he had the wingspan was nuts. He was like a combination of Ayuk and Debo. He was like Ayuk's frame with Debo's athleticism. Not quite Debo's speed. Crabtree was kind of slow.
Yeah. He was, but he could run a route.
His hands were really good too. Like
very good.
A lot of people couldn't handle Colin Kaepernick's fastball, but Crabtree had no problem with that.
No issues with it. No issues with it.
Even Randy Moss was broke his finger.
He did. Yeah.
I don't think Mario Manningham could handle that.
No way. No way.
Nope.
Somebody's asking Bosa versus Aldon Smith. We actually did that one.
We did, and we argued both sides. He said Aldon Smith. I ended up saying Bosa and surprising myself.
Yeah. Justin Smith versus DeForest Buckner. That's a good one. It's got to be Buckner, though, right? I'm going Buck. Justin Smith
was really different because Justin Smith was in the back half of his career. DeForest Buckner was in the first half. Man, they're so good. Justin Smith was so good. Justin Smith was so good. God, that's hard. That's a tough one, man. Justin Smith was such a grown man.
Dude.
It's tough to say anyone better than Justin. I just can't it doesn't I can't say it. I can't. I love
sacrilegious. Can't do it.
Justin Smith was awfully good.
Jimmy Ward, Deshaun Goldson.
Bryant Young or Justin Smith? Bryant Young. People don't remember how freaking good Bryant Young was.
Bryant Young, outside of Haley, is probably the best defensive tackle that I've seen in my time for the 49ers.
The best defensive tackles of those eras
best defensive lineman that I've seen, yes.
Well, I'll say the best defensive tackles of that era were him and Warren Sapp. Am I missing someone? It was those two. It was
definitely those two. It was definitely those two. Yeah. Yeah, Bryant Young was different. Ronnie Lott versus Hittner.
Bryant Young was better than Justin Smith. I want to say that Bryant Young was better than Justin Smith and DeForest Buckner.
He's better. Because
I think he was a better run defender than DeForest Buckner and a better pass rusher than Justin Smith. Yeah,
for sure. You got a really good super chat here.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Where are we at? Oh, man. Ihiani Owezike versus Dante Pettis. They played different positions, and Dante says that my obsession with him is getting a little old, so I should lay off. So I'm just going to stop.
Dante said this? Wait, what?
Yeah. Okay, so yesterday someone posted on Twitter a picture of Brandon Ayuk looking like totally jacked. It's like year 2 Brandon Ayuk loading, and I said I tweeted because it was early in the morning, and I don't know, I was being a jerk. I said, now do Pettis. And he found a picture of Pettis like, looking like Pettis. On his Instagram, and someone tagged him because people on Twitter are always trying to instigate stuff. So Pettis found it instantly, and he responded, he's like, "Your obsession with me is getting a little old," which was like the mature thing to say. And I felt I was like, he took the high road on me. God, I was like,
don't let him find East Bay Chris, for gosh sakes.
I know. So I said, "You're right, Dante. I'm a jerk. Good luck in New York."
Did East Bay take it and run with it? He had.
Yeah, he was like, it seems like Dante Pettis really likes you now, Grant.
Oh, there's a good one. Brandon Lloyd versus Debo. I don't know, Moon. Okay.
Well, Brandon Lloyd was he didn't play with a good quarterback, and when he went to Denver, he did have some amazing years under Shanahan. No, or was it McDaniel? I forget.
I want to might have been maybe a little bit of both because he definitely played with Tebow. I know he played with Tebow.
Yeah, so it was McDaniel.
That was McDaniel. Yeah.
He was like the Odell Beckham before Odell Beckham.
He was a cross between, as far as body control, Odell and Chris Carter.
That's true.
Absolutely amazing body control. Nobody puts together a better highlight film of 6 catches than Brandon Lloyd. I mean,
that's true.
Oh my gosh, some of those catches he
never
made
did anything that mattered. I felt like
No, he did have a couple 1,000-yard seasons, but not with the 49ers.
He did. He all of a sudden became really good in Denver. I remember in college, all of a sudden everyone was clamoring to get them on their fantasy teams. I was like, this is the same Brandon Lloyd that was like on the 49ers, but maybe it was the quarterback spot.
Yeah, for sure. That was fun, man. I enjoyed that.
That was fun. See, that's why I wasn't trying to tell anyone about the Verzuz battle, because it's good content. It's perfect for July, and we could that one out anytime. There's more Verzuz to go through. Next week it'll be Hugh McElhaney versus Joe Perry. Finally, we're going to get to the bottom of that one.
We've been wanting to do it for years, Grant.
Do you think there are like good highlights of Hugh McElhaney? I'd like to know what the dude looked like. Wow, how he moved. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame. Joe Perry too. Can we see that or not? Probably not.
We might want to do this the opposite way, just so you know, because we're getting some good ones in here. Ken Dorsey versus CJ Beathard, and Swain versus
Ken Dorsey.
Versus
hold on, Ken Dorsey actually accomplished something in college.
He did.
CJ Beathard wasn't even good in college.
Garrison Hurst versus Raheem Mostert. That's Garrison Hurst, and it's not even close.
Oh yeah, Garrison Hurst. The question is Garrison Hurst versus Frank Gore. We've talked about that one before.
Yeah,
that's how good. And also, he was only here for 2 years, but Charlie Garner was so good, and then he went to the Raiders and continued to be so good. Little known fact about Charlie Garner: started out on Eagles as a backup to Ricky Watters.
Yes. Yep.
Hell of a player.
He came over. Yep.
And I think back then he was a scat back. He was little.
He was.
And he was like, can he carry the load? Yes. Hell yes.
He was LaShawn McCoy before LaShawn McCoy was LaShawn McCoy. Identical players. If you go watch him, you'd be like
Garner better.
Oh, I
like Garner better.
Well, I have a place in my heart.
He had more longevity.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah. LaShawn Garner McCoy was an absolute stud. I love Gardner. Yes.
Super good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ricky Watters, Roger Craig. Ooh.
Roger Craig.
Ricky Watters was really underrated, though.
Ricky Watters was great, but Roger Craig.
Yeah.
Roger Craig. But yeah, no. Yeah. Julian Peterson is a forgotten baller. Yeah, he was great.
They had him and Andre Carter. Andre Carter was pretty good, too.
He was. He certainly was.
So,
all right, we're going to have to bring this back next time. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Subscribe to my Twitch and whatnots. Thank you very much. That was a marathon day of streaming. It was a lot of fun. Always look forward to Niners After Dark. Niners in the dusk time. It's so light here right now until about 9 o'clock. I don't know if it's the same way over there.
Yeah, it's about 9 o'clock. Oh, you just got a last one.
Final Hanks, man. Merton Hanks was so great. Sorry. Yeah. Dude, look at his numbers. He'd have like 7 picks a year.
I put him on my all 90s team. My Mount Rushmore of the 90s. I love Merton Hanks.
It's more of a topic. It's more of a discussion than you would think. No one gave him respect. He played on some terrible offenses with some terrible coordinators and scored a million touchdowns.
Can I say this? I can't take a guy that caught like my 6-year-old son. I'm sorry. You can, as a grown man in the NFL, you cannot catch like this.
And
that's
his routes
not a
were
thing.
Even worse. But it was a thing for him because he was 6'3", 240, and the strongest, fastest tight end in the league for a cool minute. He was a good blocker too.
He was a very good, but yeah, he was. I love Vernon Davis. I really do. He just once he got hit by Cam Chancellor, it was over for him.
He gave you nothing after the catch. Although if he was running, you probably wouldn't catch him. So the way I remember him, and we're gonna stop this show in a second, I swear.
Yeah,
was no one really knew what to do with him. They never really was on the right team. So finally, he gets Greg Roman, who's a run game coordinator and doesn't know what to do with him. And basically, they use him as a freaking decoy the whole first year. And then they get to the playoffs, and all of a sudden, he's the focal point in their entire offense. And they're like putting it on the Saints because they can go to Vernon Davis whenever they want. And it was like, oh, yeah, he's the best athlete on the field. Why do they do this all the time? And it's like, that's just kind of the teams he was on.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a lot of things in here too, talking about all-time greats versus all-time greats. If you want, we'll run it back. And B, on my channel, we've done a lot of those, like top 5 receivers of all time, top 10 receivers, top 10 running backs. So check out Last Second Sports. We've done a lot of those, So you can see at least my opinion on that.
Peep that. Subscribe. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll be back tomorrow talking about the San Francisco 49ers.